ranking every single trio in Brawl Stars Part 2. If you haven't already, be sure to check out Part 1 first. And now everyone can finally stop asking where the other trios are. I mean, seriously, read the title! Now that you're caught up, let's start with the Gift Shop Trio. Colette and Edgar are extremely iconic in Brawl Stars. They work for the Star Park gift shop, with Griff being their boss, who may or may not use their tip jar for attacking. This trio has got some good outfits, with Edgar and Colette having matching uniforms. Wait, is Griff wearing a costume? Anyways, there's a decent amount of lore for this trio. The old Star Park Inspector video from 2020 speculated to actually have Colette in it. We don't know too much about the other brawlers, other than that Edgar's scarves may actually have bones inside of them. That's kinda weird. Anyway, personality-wise, I remember once seeing a comparison of this trio to 3 characters from SpongeBob, which actually made a lot of sense, especially with the new SpongeBob event, which isn't too related, but I digress. And hey, even if that's not connected to this trio, it's still a very good design, S tier. The Gem Miners are a pretty good trio, but they may have been the ones to start the chaos in Star Park, but we'll talk about that later. For the most part, the design is pretty obvious. The biggest indicator is the matching hard hats, although I guess that's kinda Carl's whole face. Speaking of Carl, apparently Jackie's constant loud drilling really gets on his nerves. But shut up, nerd, go read about your rocks. There are a small handful of interactions of the whole trio. Dynamite's lore is that he was the first to discover the powerful gems beneath Star Park, creating all of the brawlers we know and love today. Something that only about 1% of players know is that in the gem mine environment, if none of those brawlers are being played, you can actually see them riding in the minecarts in the background. Only a few trios are actually like this, where they show up in their respective maps, and I always find them really fun. I'll be putting this trio in A tier. Now it's finally time for my favorite brawler, Sprout, who lives in the biology team. Rosa is the head scientist of the Biodome, with her assistant Bee. Working together, they built Sprout, which we've actually learned is an incubator for the pink seed inside of it. Was not expecting that. And I mean, Rosa and Sprout definitely have a green design going for it. Bee doesn't exactly follow this color trend, but she still has a nature aesthetic with her Bee design. And in 2022, we got to see an animation with all 3 of these brawlers for the Biodome season. But I mean, come on, why did Bee not get a skin in her own season? That's just unbelievable. Get it? Believable? Anyways, this trio is probably the most neutral one yet. It doesn't exactly stand out, but it's not badly designed by any means. I think this calls for a B tier. Get it? B tier? The Undead Trio is wrapped in a mystery that we only have so many clues for. All 3 brawlers have a dark purple color palette that would definitely win if they were in a Supercell make. Lore-wise, we've learned that Mortis is the uncle of Ems. With Frank, we don't know for sure, but it's likely that he's brothers with Mortis. This trio lives in the mortuary, Mortis being the actual mortician, Frank being the undead DJ, and Ems is kind of just there, obsessed with social media and marketing her hairspray brand. We've seen this trio a handful of times together in animations, specifically one in 2019. This animation stood out because in the background, we could actually see Ems before she was released. If you knew this secret, be sure to comment that you're an OG player. There's still so many things I want to know about this trio, like what are their exact relations, who are Ems' real parents, and why is Mortis looking after her now? But hey, even with these mysteries unsolved, this trio is an S tier for me. Now this trio is the first one to have actually had a brawler removed from it. But before that, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on all of my guides and fun challenge videos. So the Star Theater Trio originally consisted of Fang, Buster, and Lola, but Brawl Stars later announced that Lola actually wasn't part of their trio. The replacement brawler ended up being Maisie, and while I do think it's a better fit, I'm still not a huge fan of this trio. Fang and Buster both want to be big movie stars, but are stuck running the theaters with Maisie having to watch over them. I mean, I just don't know. The biggest design feature here is Maisie and Fang having a similar popcorn-themed outfit. But would you really be able to tell these brawlers are together right off the bat? To be honest, I don't think so. Hey, in the very least, these brawlers do have a good relationship with one another. But again, not many players would even pick up on this. This is going to be my first hot take of this video, putting this trio in C tier. Mandy and Chester were already an iconic duo, and that was recently completed with a unicorn that may or may not hate his job. Running the candy shop in the fittingly named Candyland, Mandy has to constantly deal with Chester's pranks, while Barry is the sort of big parental figure to keep him in check. Unlike the last trio I discussed, this one's design is crystal clear, with all of them having candy appear somewhere on their outfits. And spoiler alert, Barry isn't even a real unicorn. I know, my day is ruined too. Anyways, the Candyland Trio is just very well made in terms of design and the clashing personalities, but it would be nice if we knew a bit more lore about them, because as far as I know, the only below the surface info we have is that Barry's name is actually spelled with an A. And speaking of A, that's what tier this trio is going in. The Snowtail Trio isn't all that exciting or popular, but I still think it's pretty well made. Mr. B is the owner of the Snowtail, with Gale being the janitor and Lou selling snow cones. The color palette of choice here is white and blue, very fitting for the cold Arctic theme it's going for. Gale is also one of the few brawlers that actually mentions a member of his trio in his voice lines. In my opinion, this is the best member of this trio, especially since Mr. P is hiding a dark secret. Just like Barry, this isn't his actual look, he's in a costume. Will we ever know what these brawlers look like? Comment what you think. I haven't talked much about Lou, but he's just a jolly guy that likes snow cones. I even think that he could have worked in the Candyland because of his love for sweet treats. I know that's a bit of a stretch, but I'm just trying to think of more things to say, because to be honest, this trio is pretty upfront. A tier yet again. And while we're on the subject of trios that nobody talks about, the Mexican entertainers feels like it would make sense, but similar to the townsfolk trio, they just don't look very similar in design. The idea is that El Primo, Amber, and Poco are all entertainers one way or another. Poco plays the guitar, Amber is a fire dancer, and El Primo punches things. Again, I can kind of see how they all entertain, but that's literally all that's going for them. And as far as I know, these brawlers have next to no connections with one another. As far as lore goes, an old description about Poco claimed he was trying to win back his fans from a rival band. Actually a pretty cool idea. Like, imagine if Poco's trio was a newly formed band to gain back his popularity. There's not really much to say about Amber, other than that she may be a bit clumsy. And El Primo actually got his super strength from a meteor. To be honest, these individual brawlers have a lot of potential, but they simply just don't blend well when they're all together. C tier. The Deep Sea Trio is one that I feel like they changed directions with midway through. Let me explain. So Otis is a strange sea dweller that has a love for art. Hank is a war general that keeps things strict, including keeping Otis in line. And Clancy follows Hank's orders very seriously. Oh yeah, and I think he might be insane. It's kind of left up to interpretation. Anyways, the biggest problem I see here is simply the clashing trio philosophy. One side loves to vandalize with their paint, and the other tries to keep it in order. And don't get me wrong, this is a cool idea, but maybe they could have made two separate trios for each side of this paint war. But hey, in the very recent animation, we did actually see Otis helping his fellow sea creatures, so maybe he's turned a new leaf? Well, at the end of the day, I really don't think this trio is bad by any means, but it needs a bit more explanation to understand the true nature of this dynamic. So with that in mind, B tier. And speaking of contradictions, the Gold Arm Gang had such a bizarre choice for a final brawler. So Belle and Sam are notorious for being outlaws in the Wild West. Belle is the leader, it's called the Gold Arm Gang for a reason. And Sam is her loyal companion, who absolutely despises robots. Now keep that in mind. So naturally, this trio should be completed with another bandit, right? Well, Pearl is a robot who loves to bake cookies. Yeah, not exactly tough and gritty like her fellow members. This is hands down the weirdest trio choice ever. What does baking cookies have to do with robberies in the Wild West? And like I said earlier, Sam despises robots. He used to be a factory employee, and we don't know the exact reason he hates robots, but hey, I guess he just magically changed his mind because he has a sweet tooth. Pearl has zero reasons to be part of this trio, and while we're at it, let's just put Pearl and Piper in a trio because they both like baking. At least that has some continuity. The Gold Arm Gang started off strong, but with such a poor last choice, I'm putting them in D tier. So the Mystic Trio is already off to a great start with its purple and pink color palette. Tara owns her own store in the bizarre environment. Sandy, Tara's younger brother, tries his best to help around the shop, but ends up falling asleep most of the time. And Gene of course fits in design-wise, but his connection to Tara and Sandy are unknown. Maybe he's the mascot of the shop, but it's likely that he owns another store, just like Tara. This trio is just an ideal example of design and a solid amount of world building. Not much else to say about them, except that they're an A tier. And now we have the Super City Trio. In my opinion, this is the best design because of how easy it is to understand. Red and yellow is the color of choice here, and the designs are just so obvious. You'd have to be blind to not see the connection. So Max is the main hero with the power of energy drinks, and Surge is a souped-up robot who patrols by day and parties at night. And Meg's robot is supposed to fix vending machines, but she'd rather use it to fix bigger problems. Again, this team of brawlers is such a stellar design. You could even go further by saying everyone here relates to energy drinks in one way or another. It's a smaller detail, but that's what makes these trios so cool. We're going to be ending this off with an S tier. Oh, and before you ask about any other trios, I'm only talking about ones that have all 3 of their brawlers. Because I mean, what is there to say about Kids Trio? It's just kids. Subscribe.